Out of all the shows that are on TV these days, I think Steven Universe is by far one of the most intriguing. It is a kids show that adults have also enjoyed. It introduces a lot of meaningful life lessons in a way that doesn't talk down to children, but is also presented in a way that makes it very easy for them to understand, whether it be about grief, loss of a loved one, post traumatic stress disorder, or even one's identity. The show has explored these in beautifully detailed ways. And it's no secret that the show also harbors a very gay friendly message as well. But I think there's one overlooked metaphor in the Universe series: trans identity. I'm going to say this now. Do not watch if you have not seen up to the episode Know Your Fusion. I will be discussing the series in a manner that assumes the viewer has a basic understanding of the character and lore of the series. In the second season, we have an episode called We Need to Talk, where Steven's father, Greg, tells the story of his attempt to fuse with Rose. The episode ends with Greg finding common ground with Steven's friend Connie about how if she needs help with human gem relations, he's been through it before. This exchange ends with Greg and Connie's new bond of human beings, followed quickly by a bittersweet moment of Steven looking at his gem and realizing that he's not exactly a human. The series has done a great deal to illustrate that Steven is also not a full fledged gem. When I first saw this episode, I, as a trans woman, realized exactly how he felt. Because this is how I feel. He does not fit into one of the two normal groups, thereby forcing him into a third group altogether. It's very similar to how I feel as a biological male who is mentally female. I do not fit into one of these two pre-designated groups of male or female. We see Steven's fear about this resurface a few more times, including the episode Steven's Birthday. After avoiding the topic of not fitting in, he exerts too much stress on his body, reverting him back to an infant. This is a metaphor for how refusing to deal with stress can cause you to mentally regress. So we have examples of him feeling like he doesn't belong in one of two groups, and how the stress is eating him alive. But before we can go further, I want to bring up one more note. Stephen is only half of this story. Stephen is a representation of a male to female trans experience. Some examples of this um, can be seen in his behavior. First, he uses somewhat flamboyant gestures and expressions, and is definitely in touch with his feminine side. He even dresses in drag in one episode to draw attention away from his friend. Second, in the episode Super Watermelon Island, we see the female watermelon going off to war while the men stay home, showing Stephen has a favorable bias towards women. Third, Stephen himself, while having trouble fitting in at times, is still popular among his friends for being true to himself. And I can attest that this can be quite true for trans people. Keep in mind that these are generalizations and not facts. Not every person is going to have these experiences, and I am not saying that Steven is transgender. I'm saying that he is a representation of this experience. So, what about the female to male representation then? Well, I give you Amethyst. First, we have several instances of Amethyst using a male persona, like in the episode Tiger Millionaire. Second, we see Amethyst struggle with wants to be stronger, but knowing that her body is physically incapable of it. And finally, we have her inability to talk about her feelings. Men tend to hide their feelings and pretend nothing is wrong, and this is perfectly represented in the episode Reformed. Another interesting tidbit is the fact that Amethyst feels like her birth was a mistake, or rather her creation. And there are times when trans people feel like the way they were born was a mistake. Amethyst's arc deals with her identity, but not in terms of human or gem, but that she's a warrior who's not strong. She doesn't fit into the norms the gem society has placed on her. So fast forward to the end of season 3, Steven versus Amethyst. Here we have both characters dealing with the frustrations about their identity. Both characters are angry about who they are compared to who they want to be. And this was scary to watch as a trans woman Because while I do feel I have it worse than others, I also realize that I still have it better than others. And that is what this episode is trying to showcase. Both Steven and Amethyst are in a my pain is greater than your pain fight, and there is no clear winner. But when they were both able to get their insecurities off their chest, they were better for it. Which brings us to Earthlings. This episode was a brilliant way to end this arc. Steven and Amethyst finally come to terms with their limitations, but they realize that they shouldn't have to fit into one of two groups. Steven doesn't have to be human or gem, and Amethyst doesn't have to be strong, and they can be who they want to be, limitations and all. Thus we have the brilliance that is Smoky Quartz. Smoky Quartz is a perfect metaphor for transgender identity. At first glance, it's not what you'd expect, but the more you look at him or her, the more beautiful he or she becomes. The show could have ended this arc perfectly right there, but they took it even further. In America, we have a bad habit of celebrating trans people while also being completely ignorant about them. We have newscaster asking transgender guests extremely personal questions about their medical treatments and stuff that's really none of their business. And this is beautifully showcased in the episode Know Your Fusion. At first glance, this episode is a very silly concept, an interview with Smoky Quartz. But in the end, it becomes more about what they can or can't do rather than how they got to this beautiful place. Applying the trans experience story to this episode opens up a whole new level of allegory, and it just makes it 10 times better in my opinion. In the end, I find Smoky Quartz to be the perfect representation of transgender people in a kid's show. And keep in mind, that's without actually making the character trans. And now I am more excited than ever before to see Smoky Quartz end up in future episodes. So, that's just my thought, but let me know what you guys think. And if this video is popular enough, maybe I'll go in depth with other fusions and have my thoughts on them. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, you can hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and check out these other videos I have for you right here on the screen. That's about it, so I guess I'll catch you guys next time.